Hello and welcome back to the Coming of Cage podcast, your Nicolas Cage movie review podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Derek, and the other host, Ryan, is right over here.
Indeed, I am. And today is a very big day. We're talking about Vengeance, a Love Story.
The classic.
The classic 2017 Vengeance, a Love Story. You know, everybody's seen it, everybody knows it, everybody loves it.
No.
No, that's
Uh,
actually not accurate. None of that is true.
it's not. Oh man. But that is the movie that we're talking about, 2017 movie. Um, Directed by Johnny Martin and stars Nicolas Cage, Anna Hutchinson, Talitha Eliana Bateman, Don Johnson's in it. Some other people I don't know are in it. Charlene Tilton, people may recognize, but for the most part, a lot of people I'm not really familiar with are in it. It is based off of a book written by Joyce Carol Oates of a similar name. Um, and the synopsis here on IMDb is: one vigilante policeman comes to the aid of a single mother seeking to bring her rapist to justice. So, trigger warning for
Sexual assault.
sexual assault and other terrible things of that nature. Um, not a fun movie to talk about, let alone watch. So,
But we'll try and
Ryan,
make it as fun as we can.
yeah, why don't you get us going there, buddy?
Okay. Well, how I usually do this is I take notes throughout the movie in kind of chronological order as I'm watching live, and then we discuss those notes and kind of go through the plot or plots of the movie, and discuss it. And I do kind of want to say just out of the beginning that description that IMDb gives is really only the description for about the last 30 minutes of the movie and the first 10.
It's just Nicolas Cage's arc is the only thing that's a
Yeah, the
synopsis of.
movie is actually like two separate movies.
Uh-huh.
There's like the first movie is like a more of a courtroom legal thing, and then the second part of the movie is more of what the IMDb description says. It's very weird. We'll get into it more, but yeah, I just while we were talking about the description, I had to kind of throw that part out there and see if you felt that way too.
No, it absolutely is, and I think I know why.
There's like a point a half an hour in where it's like, okay, I guess the movie's over now because it was like the whole thing set up at the beginning was basically done.
Yeah. Well, so Nick was supposed to direct this movie, and he wasn't able to due to scheduling conflicts. So I'm wondering if his character was going to have a larger part and the movie was going to be more focused on the vigilante stuff, and just due to scheduling they had to scale that back and fill the time with the obviously like heavier, more emotional, dramatic stuff.
Maybe. I
That's
don't
that's my
know.
guess.
But it definitely felt like two different movies that got kind of combined into one.
I guess we'd have to read the book to really know,
I'm good.
and I'm not gonna
Yeah,
do
I'm not
that.
chomping at the bit for that.
Nope.
So we only got three intros on this one.
Yeah.
Though one of them was Saturn Films, which I think is Nicolas Cage's production
Yep.
company, right?
Yep.
We see that a lot on these weird, like I don't want to say generic, but these kind of lower. Man, it makes it sound like I'm just trashing his company, but almost all of these like
No,
mid-grade movies
the
have Saturn on there.
non-blockbusters. I'm gonna say the
Yeah,
non-blockbusters, right?
right.
The non-triple A movie.
And they usually end up being in kind of our middle tier of movies.
hmm
So, however, that happens to be. The intro after the like publishing companies is basically just a bunch of emergency scenes
hmm
of like police officers responding to calls or firefighters or paramedics, EMS responding to calls, but also like news reports and like newspaper clipping articles and stuff, which really doesn't have anything to do with anything in the movie
Nope.
other than Nicolas Cage is a police officer
Hmm.
or a detective, one of the two. It's like
Yeah,
kind of
that's kind of
unclear.
it's
It's
unclear.
it's kind of vague. Sometimes he acts like he's an FBI, like
I think he's a detective, but again, like we don't get to see him on the job all that much.
no, not a lot.
It's mostly him thinking about what he wants to do, and
It
then
it is, yeah, it's very weird. He is a producer on this movie too. We get that in the credits in the opening credits. Right away, we get fires a gun because the movie basically opens with him at the target range with like six different guns
yeah,
practicing for
he
some
just keeps
reason.
switching between them. I guess it's supposed to show that he's like a great shot with anything. He's very
Yeah, I guess
dangerous. He's not just some, some
Joe
like
Schmo.
right, yeah, yeah. It's a John McClane character,
Right.
you know.
Um, so we had a question for you on this part
Okay.
because he does wear safety glasses in this scene when he's shooting, which is great practice for anybody who is thinking of going shooting.
Yeah, it's the right thing to do. You're
Does
wondering
that
if it,
count for our bingo card?
so I mean, we've talked a bit about this. I'm a believer in the square says wears glasses. I think that that
Well, the
qualifies.
square now says Nick wears sun in parentheses glasses.
Well,
But
because you would argue a lot that sunglasses didn't count, and I wanted to stomp that argument. So I think safety glasses also qualify.
okay, I'll mark it.
You know,
Okay,
I think if he wore one of those, like, what's the one glass thing that the
a
guy has on the
monocle?
monocle? Yeah, I think that would count. Does that count? Is it
No,
half a
because
square?
that's just a monocle. Um, I do have a proposal for a new square.
Ooh,
We'll get to that later, though. I'm
okay.
not. That's keep listening, and you'll get to hear that. I know everybody's on the edge of their seat.
I am. I'm excited.
Nick wrecks a car like right
Yeah,
away.
very fast.
He drives his car. Yeah, we got like five or four bingo squares right in a row in the first like 5 minutes of this movie. Yeah, he wrecks a car, trying to stop some guy, criminal,
Some
some bad guy,
bad guy who's trying to get
and then
away
gets into a shootout when the car is stalled and his partner dies and he
right
gets
before he's
shot.
supposed to propose to.
Yeah, they make it clear as soon as they were showing this guy with the ring. I'm like, this dude's gonna die, and I didn't actually think it was gonna be that soon. I thought maybe like towards the end of the movie,
No,
but
it's so quick. I
right
was three
away,
days from retirement.
yeah, he gets blasted immediately after showing him the ring. And Nick could not be more uninterested about this ring. This guy is telling him, he's just like dumping his life onto Nick, and Nick could not be more uninterested about it. I mean, this character, that's
Right,
the way he
right.
was playing this character. This character is a distracted character. He's focused on one thing and one thing only, and that's the job, I guess, in this case. But he's the guy's like pulls the ring out and is like, look at that green. That green is good or whatever.
Yellow, yellow.
Or yellow. And Nick's like, okay.
It's
Yeah. And then when he gets blasted, the ring like falls out of his jacket and he like Nick sticks it back in there for him. But Nick has also been shot, but is completely unaffected. It was like Con Air all over again, where he gets shot in
the
the
same
chest.
spot too.
Yeah.
It's the,
Well, no,
like the
because on
arm.
Con Air it was the edge of the arm. On this, it
It
was more
was
like the torso.
what I thought it was up by the
I
arms,
think
but it
it's like
was
under
okay.
the like rib cage area, but either way,
Fair enough.
he is completely unaffected by it. It like doesn't bother him at all. He's sitting there bleeding and doesn't care. Um yeah, dead partner was my next note. Let's see. Oh yeah, so he goes after work this day. He goes to this bar and apparently in this bar he's a fucking hero. This bar, he is a celebrity. Everybody knows him here. They literally have okay, well, first, there's a woman that comes in and
Mhm.
she starts dancing, and Nick glances at her briefly. He's not leering, he's not staring, but the bartender walks up to him and gives him the entire life story of this girl. Her name might as well have been her address and social security number. I mean, he gives her every detail that she's like a widow and like all this other stuff. It was crazy. So much detail. He
And
didn't
it's of
even
course a
ask
very
for it.
sad story. Her husband's
Everything in this
dying of
movie is sad.
cancer, and she's got a
There's
kid, and
there's no silver lining of anything in this movie. It is just depressing to the end. But yeah, so she comes over to talk to him and she knows his name and everything. And he seems surprised by that, but then she gestures to the wall that has like a line of newspapers with him on the front page and his name and the title text.
Well, because like
So
so this takes place in Niagara Falls on the U.S. side. I've never been there, but this movie plays it out like it's a tiny frickin' town and everybody knows everybody.
yeah,
Is
it's
how this
true.
is played out. I don't know. I mean, I probably should have looked that up, but you know,
I mean, I've been to Niagara Falls, but I haven't really spent a lot of time in the surrounding cities or anything, so I don't remember.
well, I guess it's only like 47,000 people.
Yeah, I don't remember it being like huge
So,
metropolitan type cities, but
yeah,
um so they're like flirty,
a little
him and
bit.
this girl are. And so I didn't know if that qualifies for love interest. I think by the end of the movie, it definitely kind of has a love interest vibe to it.
I don't know. It's weird to me because he has more of a relationship, not to jump ahead, but has more of a relationship with the daughter than he does with the mother. And so like I kind of feel like there isn't a
She
love
gives him
interest.
her number.
Right, but nothing happens. They never go on a date.
No, but that quote shows that there's clearly romantic interest, right? Interest being the key word. You're the one that wants to interpret these
All right.
squares
All right.
exactly as they're
Well,
written.
we did write the squares.
You wrote the squares, yes. So if you're arguing against yourself,
All right, well, all right, fine. So, okay, well then definitely the love interest is
yeah,
more
because
than
she's
10 years
22
younger.
years
Yeah,
younger.
she's my wife's age.
Yeah.
So,
Um, so they, kind of flirt for a little bit, and she gives him her number, and she leaves. And then it's a 4th of July party that she's at where she's flirting with another guy.
yeah, it's very unclear how much time is passing.
Yes. It's not much because Nick he talks about how like the night before he saw her or something like that at one point. So I mean, eventually we get that clarity, but right now in this point in the movie, it's just a cut to a 4th of July party.
Right.
Lots of drinking. The daughter is hanging out on the roof with another girl, which apparently
A
she
couple
wasn't
other kids,
supposed to
yeah.
be.
Well, yeah, I guess the mother's very protective because I mean, her husband's dying of cancer and she's going to be a single mom and
Sure,
I get it.
very protective. Remember you said that.
Well, being very
Um,
protective does not mean you always make the best decisions, but
so eventually the dude that she's like hanging out with is like, I want to fuck, and she's like, no, my daughter's here, dude, and it's getting late, and she's got to go visit her grandma tomorrow, and then he's like, well, still, you guys should just spend the night here, and she's like, no, because if I drop her grandma tomorrow, it means that we'll have the whole day together tomorrow or something like that. And so he's like, fine, 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 whatever. And so he's like, I'll give you a ride. And she's like, no, I'll just walk. It's not a big deal because he's been drinking. They go through a lot of alcohol at this party. And so they start walking home, and mom's like, it's evening. It's like dusk at this point. And mom's like, I know a shortcut with her 10-year-old, 12-year-old.
that's unclear. I think she's 12. The
Yeah.
gr the
They do
grandma
mention
says
it
that she's 12, but then it's also said that she's in fourth grade, and you're not 12 in fourth grade. You're
unless you
like
failed a couple.
you're 9 or 10, depending on where in the year you are. So she's somewhere between 10 and 12. It's
Yeah.
unclear.
But with her 12-year-old daughter, this shortcut is a not even a path. It's just cutting through a densely wooded area. And she's so protective of her daughter
I
that they're
know.
like, we're going to go through the creepiest woods imaginable.
Look, you and I have seen too many of these movies for that to happen and be like, nope, don't do that. It's a bad idea. Don't go that way.
Yeah, my next
It's
note was,
also
I'm sure walking through this creepy dark woods is fine.
Well, also it's 2017. Call like an Uber or a Lyft or
Right.
something,
Cell
right?
phones do
Like,
exist, despite what this movie would have you believe.
right? Like this is a fairly modern film,
Yeah.
so like just call an Uber, right? If you don't want, not driving drunk is great. That was a good choice. Call an Uber.
Yeah. But based on a
Call
lot of
call
the
your
other
mom. Call
based
your
on a lot of
grandma.
the other Nicolas Cage movies we've watched, driving drunk isn't that outlandish for one of these movies.
But
So
Ubers are because I don't think they've ever used one.
ever no ride sharing at all. So big surprise. Walking through the creepy dark
God.
woods is not a good idea with your daughter. And like four guys show up at this boathouse, and they know her clearly, and they're like, "We are going to do what we want to do." And so one of the guys grabs the daughter, and three of the guys grabs the mom. And we're not going to really get into the what happens. I thought it was going to be even worse than it was, and the daughter stuff was going to go a different way. But the daughter manages to like kick the guy and get away. But she watches while, or not watches specifically, but she is there in the vicinity and could watch what was happening to her mom as her mom is beaten and violently assaulted sexually.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty bad. I mean, not that like the way it's shot is like,
You
gratuitous
don't
or anything,
see, no, thank God
but
they didn't go that
yeah,
route.
but the characters are just deeply aggressive. The whole scene is just really, really, really violent and aggressive. They
And
really steer
honestly, those characters are just so one-dimensional throughout the whole movie.
the four guys.
Yeah, what like it's like the mustachio twirling villains of the like
Well,
olden
one
days, but worse because they're sexual assaulters.
right. I mean, one of them in particular is I don't remember any of their names, but like one in particular, like is he just gloats the entire movie, whereas the other three seemingly just want to get away with it. So he's
But
like,
none of them are like embarrassed about it
no, no,
or
no, they're all
regretting it.
totally fine with what they did. One just is more, I don't know, more. Just he's literally gloating about it at times.
Yeah.
But it's pretty bad.
Yeah, at one point, like I can't remember if it's during or after, one of the guys like says to the woman that's unconscious on the ground, "Happy 4th of July." Like it's just so unnecessarily. I mean, I get it that they want you to hate these guys, but like generally rape is a good way to get an audience to hate somebody without having to make them even more,
I
evil.
I think that's why like I struggle with this movie a lot because it's like designed just to piss you off for most
Yeah.
of the time, right?
Well,
Because like
because it wants you to have that feeling of vengeance at the end, but you don't really ever get that either.
the thing is, and maybe it's just me, but it doesn't take that much for me to feel that way.
Yeah,
Like I don't need that level of corruption to feel like justice must be served. Okay,
right.
I don't need to be sold that hard on it because the acts alone are terrible, right? So like I just felt like the movie just kept doubling down on it to a point where like it was almost unwatchable for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing is, I mean, we'll get into it more, but the actual vengeance part is like 8 minutes. And it's so easy. It's not like, in John Wick or whatever, he has to go through all this stuff to make these things happen. No. He just like walks up to the dudes. I mean, we'll get into it, but it's
Yeah,
very easy. Barely an inconvenience to
barely.
deal with
Yeah.
these guys.
Yep.
Anyway, uh, conveniently or inconveniently, or however you want to look at it, the daughter walks out into the street after this happens,
Well, she
and
finds a road and she's just walking down the road.
Nick just happens to be the one that finds
That
her.
so that's problematic because Nick's character is John, the girl's name is Bethy, the mom's name is Tina. John is like always in the right place when he needs to be.
Yeah,
Again, right? I guess it's a small town, 47,000 people. I got to imagine there's like more than one bar and more than one road and more than one pair of cops,
boathouse. Yeah,
who are going around town, right? Because we don't really see like hardly any other cops. I think the only time we see other cops are like two other scenes. The rest of the time, it's like it's just Nick and whoever his partner is.
yeah,
So that's a little problematic. I do give Bethy guts for leaving her hiding spot at all during the night because who knows where those guys were.
right.
I certainly could not have blamed her for just staying there until the sun rose, but she didn't, and her mom, survives because of that.
Did you? Maybe it was just me, but did you at any point think the mom was dead?
Yes.
Yeah, 100%, right? Because like when Bethy first goes over to her, she is unresponsive hasn't moved at all.
Yeah.
And like even when Nick gets there,
He does like
hasn't
the pulse
moved
check and everything,
and
and
does a pulse check, but he doesn't say she's alive or that he
no,
finds a pulse.
you
I mean,
only
the indication is that she's dead. Like he's not
right.
acting like she's alive. We got to get her to medical right now. Like,
No, we find out she's alive when she's being loaded
loaded
into
into
the
a
ambulance,
yeah. I'm like,
and
"Oh shit, she's alive?"
Bethy goes with her, and yeah, John's like, here, take these shoes, it'll help her or whatever kind of. It's like she's alive, I guess. Like,
Yeah.
I
Literally
mean,
my
yeah,
note was she's alive. She seems pretty dead.
I thought so.
Okay, well I'm glad it wasn't just me. Also, they kept referencing that she almost bled out, but there was zero blood anywhere around the body.
Maybe it was
Like
internal.
her face was bloody.
It could have been internal.
You can bleed out internally, 100%. But at
I
no
mean, they
point did
do.
they show like her giant, like the giant leg bone that you can bleed out from. They don't show that getting broken or anything like that. That would make you think that there's an internal.
No, but I mean, she's hit a lot. So it could
It's
have just
true.
been internal bleeding.
It's true. It's just weird when people are talking about bleeding out. You
I mean,
usually
maybe that's
think
not the
out.
right term. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm,
I would have thought they would have said she would die of internal bleeding if that's what it was. But yeah, it was just weird. They kept talking about how she almost bled out, but really there was like some blood on her face and she'd clearly been beaten, but no blood anywhere around her body,
yeah. I mean,
which is fine.
yeah,
I don't need that, but
yeah,
don't reference bleeding out if that, you know what I mean? Just for the sake of the daughter in the
sure,
movie, I don't need her to like crouch in a puddle of her mom's blood or something to make it even worse.
yeah.
Um, yeah. So immediately, okay, so Nick talks to the daughter in the hospital, and he asks her about these guys, right? And he gets descriptions, and 2 seconds later, he's kicking in the doors of the correct guys
Oh yeah.
right away.
Hmm.
He doesn't. I mean, it shows them bringing in like 10 guys to the lineup.
Well, because they
Um,
always bring in extra people,
Right. I
right?
thought
Like,
maybe they were going to start singing some 98 Degrees, but they did not.
but they get all four guys the night of.
Yes,
It's
literally
all
within
that night,
hours. And the
right?
daughter immediately IDs the four
Which
without
is
any trouble.
like that is so. Again, like I just there's a few things that happen in this movie that I just have to question like how realistic it is. And this is one of those things. Like these guys all get round up within 3-4 hours
Yeah.
of the incident happening. That happened in the middle of nowhere with no surveillance footage being used or any other eyewitnesses other than a 10 to 12-year-old who's clearly traumatized. I don't know how they found these people.
Yeah. Yeah. My notes go from finds dudes easily based on a 12-year-old description, and then ID'd and arrested everyone in less than a day.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. So then we go to another scene after she's ID'd the guys. They get out on bail. And we get a scene at the house of the two of the guys are brothers.
Hmm.
And we get a scene with like a guy we have no idea who he is, and a younger girl that we have no idea who she is, but she's walking out in like some skimpier clothing, and the dad, you assume it's her dad, is like slut shaming her for wearing
Yeah.
this clothing. And then when the camera kind of goes into the house, you find out that this is the family of the two brothers of the four that were involved in the rape. And uh, they're dealing with a lawyer who says that he can get them out of this and that
This
they
is Don
really don't have a
Johnson's
choice.
character.
Yeah, they really don't have a choice but to do this unless they want their sons to rot in jail for the rest of their lives. And so they end up deciding to pay him with the house
Hmm.
eventually. I don't think that happens in this scene, but they find out how much it costs.
Well, there's so much twisted in here, right? Because there's the scene with like the mother of the boys is talking to like their pastor or
Oh yeah,
whatever,
the pastor
you
offering
know.
legal counsel. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I forgot
And
about that.
he's like helping her get them off of this crime that the two of them are basically admitting to each other that happened,
Right.
right?
Well, they actually never deny that any of this happened. They just
Well, the mom does many times,
true,
but
but I'm saying the actual people. Well,
oh
she
yeah,
didn't. She denies that they raped a girl.
yeah.
They are denying that they raped a girl and saying, and we'll get into that, but they're
Well,
saying
right.
that it was consensual. So nobody at any point really denies that the act happened. Whether it was just whether it was a violent act or
To
a
the degree which,
right,
yeah. No, no,
exactly.
yeah, but it's just, it was just very frustrating to, you know, to watch this coordination of like this supposed, religious man who's supposed to be, teaching the right way of doing things, right?
Recommending a lawyer to get
And
the rapists,
not just a lawyer, like the
the
guy who
skeeziest
could,
lawyer you
right,
can
the
imagine.
sleaziest, scummiest piece of shit you could possibly find on the planet who could get anybody off of anything,
Yeah,
that lawyer,
yeah.
right? Not, hey, these guys are really innocent, so we should help them. Not that,
And also the
you know?
lawyer makes sure to tell the parents that if those kids go to jail, and we say kids, they're not kids, they're full grown adults.
Oh, yeah.
But that
Yeah,
they
yeah,
will
yeah.
get raped in jail. And he makes sure to make that clear that they will get raped in jail. So if they don't want that to happen,
Well, because he's
then
trying to scare them into paying him.
right,
Right? He wants the money, he wants the business because he's a
right.
piece of shit, you know?
And the daughter from that house runs into the girl's the
Bethy, yeah.
daughter, Bethy, at like a coffee shop where she's getting coffee or something for her mom. And that girl instantly bullies Bethy. And yeah, it's totally an unnecessary scene, in my opinion.
Well, I think it's supposed to just kind of showcase how, there's just going to be constant intimidation and constant discrimination, and that the things that have happened to Bethy and Tina, they're as horrible as they are, they probably don't have a future in this town,
Yeah, this
regardless of
whole
what
town is like
happens.
rallied against them
Yeah.
instantly,
Well,
which
because
seems weird.
yeah, it just gets so bad.
So then we go to court, which is not an actual trial, it's just a hearing.
Hmm.
Um, but they're treating it like a trial essentially. And this is where we find out so the Tina's lawyer has told her that she's going to pull her up to the stand, and all she has to do on the stand is say that yes, these four men are the men that did it. But she's still like, it's been not very long. The
Well,
trauma
she's only
is
been home
still,
for a few days.
yeah, the trauma is still all really bad. And so, of course, when they call her to the stand, she freaks out. And we find out that the guys are claiming that it was consensual, but that she wanted money for it, and that she raised the price on them and got violent with them when they said no. And so her wounds are from them defending themselves. Four full grown men against one woman.
Which is absolutely insane and ridiculous, but it's not even the worst part of the scene because we find out that the judge is a corrupt motherfucker,
Yeah, and friends with
right?
this corrupt lawyer.
Well, because the whole idea here, right, is that Niagara Falls is a tourist town. So if they get this conviction, it paints the town in a negative image and tourists won't come. So instead of serving justice and having criminals get put away, we're going to sweep it all under the rug for the good of the city. So the judge is just this huge, horrible, sexist piece of shit. And the lawyer is arguably worse,
Yeah.
and it creates this circus of a thing that, like, look, I'm not a lawyer, but like, he's intimidating a 12-year-old in the courtroom and nobody does anything about it.
Yeah, and also the rapists are openly taunting.
It's insane, that whole scene. Honestly, I was so pissed off by that scene that I would have shut off the movie if it wasn't for a podcast.
Yeah, it was pretty ridiculous.
I
And
was done.
they pull Nick Cage up on the stand and ask him about what happened. And when Nick Cage tells him what happened, the judge corrects his grammar.
Yeah, because he doesn't care. The whole point is to discredit everybody so they could throw the case out.
Yeah. And then so the Tina, the woman that had been raped, she is wearing glasses and like a headscarf, and the judge asked her to remove her glasses, and the her lawyer says, judge, she has a medical condition from the hospital that she's sensitive to light right now, probably because of a concussion, I would assume.
Yeah.
And the judge is like, I can't take her seriously with those glasses on, so she has to remove the glasses. And it's just, again, so like
He says
unbelievably,
he goes, she can squint.
yeah, she can squint. Yeah, I
Dude,
mean,
like, is so the
it's
scene is such a farce. Like, I can't get past it.
Yeah. And then the whole courtroom cheers for the rapists
Yeah,
at
it's
the
awful. The
end.
whole thing.
It's literally like an NBA game. Like,
It's like there are four decent human beings in the entire city.
right. Yeah.
It's
Uh,
it's unbelievable.
yeah. And so Tina, after this trial, goes and ends up trying to sneak out of her house incognito, with like a hoodie on and stuff like that, and ends up going to Niagara Falls, and like she's thinking about killing herself, is what the implication is.
Hmm.
But it turns out that Nick Cage followed her.
No, I don't know that he followed her. I think he just, again, right place when he needed to be.
I don't know. I got the idea. I got the hint that he was following her or just like watching after the courtroom to make sure she was okay.
I mean, that's the problem that we don't know exactly when this happens, and he's still got a job,
Sure,
right?
but Niagara Falls is not small in terms of the actual falls.
Well,
So the
right.
fact that they ended up on the exact same area, I mean, it's
Well, so
crazy.
that's part of the problem, though, right? And we go back to that same area. And by the way, I don't know this to be fact, but I find it extremely unlikely that you can just walk up to the falls like that.
Where I was at, you 100% could not. No.
There's no gate, there's no fence, there's no signs, there's no camera, there's no guards, there's nothing. You're telling me that I could just go and jump off the falls like that?
Also, why are the falls all green screen? Is it that
Well,
important that it takes place in Niagara Falls that you have to like green screen in a bunch of waterfalls?
because the whole thing was shot in Atlanta.
Was it
Maybe,
really?
yeah. There's a few goofs specifically around the courthouse where you can see like Georgia and Atlanta stuff. Um,
See, I didn't see that, but I mean, the Niagara Falls stuff all looked very green screened.
yeah, because I would be willing to bet that on at least on the U.S. side that there is no place that looks like that where there is no fencing, gating,
No.
anything of any kind, and it's just a flat slab of
When
rock that
I
you.
went, it was like a park kind of thing, but it was like a built. There's buildings up against the
Sure.
falls and
Mhm.
fences along that you could look down the falls and see the falls and stuff, but you couldn't get anywhere near
I wouldn't
the
think
falls
so,
themselves. No.
right?
Um, so after the courtroom, they go. So Nick stops her basically from killing herself. But
Mhm.
after the courtroom, that they go live with her mom. Well, after this incident with the Niagara Falls, they go back. The daughter and the mom go back to their house, and we get a hint that something is wrong with the cat because there's a food dish that still has food in it.
I think that's still the grandma's house.
That's the grandma's house
That's her.
still.
It's the grandma's cat.
Oh, okay. I thought it seemed like it was a whole different house that they were going back to.
I mean that.
Um,
I mean maybe there's some shooting that's not consistent, but that's supposed to be the grandma's house.
Also, in the earlier scenes where you see the cat, it just cracked me up. Anytime there's a cat in one of these movies that's like low budget, you just know the cat is not like a performing actor cat because anybody that's had a cat can tell you there's no such thing. I mean, you can train a cat to do tricks, but a cat is not going to do stuff like that on a movie set like a trained dog. They're just different animals. So anytime I saw that cat on screen, I was like, this is going to be chaos. And it wasn't really chaos, but it was funny because the cat was just doing whatever the cat was going to do, and they just rolled with it.
Sure.
And I thought that was hilarious. That's why I was disappointed because the cat was my favorite part
Hmm.
of the movie, and then we get some other stuff that happens. But yeah, so the cat goes missing, um, and not too long later, there's like a noise on the porch. The daughter notices the cat something's weird with the cat. There's a noise on the porch, and the daughter goes out to the porch, and the cat is like hanging from a noose on the porch, and it shows it like
Yeah.
whatever. And so the daughter doesn't want to freak her mom out or her grandma, and so she, completely traumatized by this, cuts the cat down and goes and buries the cat immediately in the backyard.
Yeah, I mean Bethy's hardcore, man. Like, cause her shoulder is out of its socket, that night, and it has to get popped back in, and like she goes through so much in this movie, like, and she's 10 or 12 years old, right? Like, it's unbelievable.
Yeah. Before I hit my next note, I want to touch on one thing, and you and I have talked about this about the series Severance a little bit, but car casting has
Yeah,
become more into my mind. Like, we're both car guys. We've said this on the podcast before. Car casting has become more of a part of the thing I pay attention to in movies.
sure.
And the way that these four guys act. Um, we didn't get to see any of their cars up to this point, but when we were about to see what one of them drives, my first instinct, as someone who thinks I would be really good at car casting in movies, was that at least one of these guys is going to drive a muscle car, right?
Mm.
Like Joe Dirt style, like shitty Camaro, something like that.
Yeah, yeah,
So I get really excited because we're about to see the first car of one of these guys, and we see it. I think we see it when it's driving away from the
yeah.
house. Do you know what that car was?
I don't remember.
An AMC Gremlin,
Oh, right.
which is one of the most unique looking non-muscle cars you
Yeah,
can imagine. It's like a nerdy, in most movies, it's like that took place in that time period. It was like a nerdy car.
yeah,
Like
totally.
like it's not something a cool guy drives or anything. I did not predict that would be the car.
Mm.
But as soon as I saw it and saw that it was a bright color, because I think it was like blue, bright blue, or like
Yeah,
a
it's blue.
gray metallic blue,
Yeah,
something
yeah.
like that. I knew that there was going to be another scene coming up where you see that car in the background at some point, because you don't pick a flashy car or a flashy color like that for a car that stands out like that car does, unless it's going to be hinted at some point in the future to where you think, oh shit, that guy's there.
Yeah, I forgot it was the same guy because I do remember the car later on because the car does show up at least two more scenes. And I was thinking it was a different guy's car in the first one. So yeah, yeah, yeah. That it is a very specific car, right?
Yes,
That is not a blending in vehicle.
and this is not the only car we get to see. So we'll get back into this when we see the next car.
Okay.
Um but yeah, so the kid buries the cat, which is crazy. I was like, there's no fucking way. But she did. And the grandma comes home with groceries, and the kid had just been burying the cat and comes in and acts like nothing's fine or everything's fine, and like goes to wash the dirt out from under her fingernails. I mean, it's crazy.
This poor kid's gonna have some issues later in life.
Yeah. And so the next scene is like at a bar
Hmm.
where there's a it's unclear what's on TV. It's something like a boxing match or a UFC
I think it
fight.
was like yeah, UFC or MMA.
They don't ever show what's happening, but we see the rapist that drives the gremlin. We see him in the bar, and
And this is the gloating guy. This is like
yes,
of the four, if you had to pick the worst, this is that guy.
yes. And so he's like cheering on, talking about, oh, get the blood out of him. He's like a psychopath, obviously.
Yeah.
And at the bar is the guy that
Is
Tina was
it's the
dating,
guy yeah, they're dating.
or I don't know if they're dating, but they're seeing each other for sure.
Sure.
They have some sort of a romantic relationship. From the 4th of July party, we saw them talking there, and he's at the bar, and
He's
the guy puts
drinking, looking sad.
yes, and the guy is just like being belligerent. He hasn't even really had a drink or anything, at least not in the bar. He just shows
Well,
up.
he does take a pretty big hit in the car before he
That's
comes
true.
in. I assume it was pot. I guess we don't know
Yeah.
exactly what that was, but
So he like starts acting belligerent. He's like, I got 20 on this, blah blah blah. Nobody wants to take my money. Nobody wants to take my money. He's like yelling this at the whole bar. And there's only like four people in the bar. So who's he trying to impress? It's not like it's a crowded bar. And the dude that is the romantic interest of the girl, he was like, I'll take that bet. And so of course that guy wins, and he asks the dude if he's going to pay up. So he walks up to him and like rips up the money and sees who it is, and he's like, I'll do you like I did Tina.
which is really a smart thing to do is confess what you've done in public. But I guess nobody cares because the bartender's like, you want to get arrested again? Not, oh, cool. I can now tell everybody that I heard you confess it, right? Everyone's just going to
Yeah,
protect these slime balls for what I just don't like. The motivation to protect these for is beyond my
it's
comprehension.
crazy. So the bartender basically kicks the dude out, and we see that Nick Cage has been sitting in the back booth the whole time.
Well, no,
Um, and,
nobody gets kicked out because Lloyd, the
or he just
boyfriend,
leaves after that or
he
something.
gets another drink and like he gets like a beer and a jack or whatever, and then some time, and they pan to Nick sitting at the booth.
Yeah. But eventually the dude leaves.
Yeah.
And then we don't I don't know if it was very clear or not when that all happened, but then the romantic interest guy leaves after some amount of time after the rapist has left.
Yeah.
And as the guy is walking out, you get that scene that I'm talking about where you see the car still there.
Hmm.
And so you know something's about to happen.
Yep.
And so the guy
Which
gets
is
out to
really
his
good. I
car.
mean, that in itself,
Is good
that's
storytelling.
that's
Yeah.
good. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And even though I don't agree with the car that was cast, I agree with the way that they utilized
It
it.
did work. Yeah.
Yes. And so the guy is going to go get in his car and the rapist comes out and starts beating the shit out of him
Throws him through
um through
the
the
driver's side
window.
window.
Yeah.
Like
It's a pretty violent thing. But then Nick comes out, of course, and just
right place at the right time.
pops the dude right in the no, it's not the right place at the right time. It's implied that he like knew about everything that was going to happen and where they were going to be, and he's been like trying to plan this. It's not like just a
Well, because there's this
slapdash thing.
because there's this scene earlier in the movie where he's like sitting, I think, in a church by himself. And he's just kind of sitting there. He doesn't say anything. He's got like his hand up in kind of like a, his kind of Nick Cage pointing kind of way. It's arguably the only cagey bit in the whole movie. And he's just sitting there thinking. And I feel like he hadn't made a decision yet. Like he knew what he needed to do, but he didn't know if he could do it kind of thing. And I think that this was supposed to be that coalescing, that he wasn't planning to kill that dude tonight, but he was
Hard
there.
disagree.
All
Hard
right.
disagree.
Okay.
Because I'm gonna. This is where we come up with the new square for the Nick Cage bingo.
Okay.
There's one thing. It's been in multiple movies that shows you the character transition in
Okay.
this type of movie.
Okay.
I'm going to give you a hint as to what it is. It's an article of clothing.
The black leather jacket?
Vengeance jacket. Yes.
Vengeance jacket.
He's had it in multiple movies that when he
Interesting.
turns on, like when it flips the switch, now he's going to like do something, revengey. He's going to put on his vengeance jacket where
Do we need a vengeance meter?
during the rest of the movie, he never wears a leather jacket. He's always buttoned up, wearing whatever else. As soon as he's at this bar, he's wearing this leather jacket. That he's been to this bar before and did not wear a leather jacket.
Dude, that's very good.
I'm not sure. This has been in other movies too,
No,
because
no.
we've brought up the vengeance jacket in other movies.
It's really good that you tied it together because I straight up saw him in the jacket. I was like, that he looks great in that jacket. Like that is a good looking jacket. Like
That's why they use it. God, I can't remember the other movies that he's
that's
worn
so
the vengeance
funny.
jacket, but he has
Oh
had
man.
the vengeance jacket in other movies too.
Oh
Not the
man.
exact jacket,
No, of course
obviously,
not. No, no, no.
but
But
but a like specifically designed leather
well, doesn't he do
jacket.
that in Gone in 60 Seconds? Like in that scene where it spins around the room, isn't he putting on like a jacket in
He
that
is,
moment? Like,
although that's not really a vengeance
no, but it's like when
in
he's
that.
gonna like do the thing.
But there's
It's
been other movies where it's been legitimately a vengeance jacket. I
and
can't remember which ones, but
it might be even beyond that though, where it's just like this is it. This is when he does the thing that you're here to see him do.
yeah.
You know,
So my proposal for the new square is vengeance jacket.
I like it. Okay, let me make a note of that. That's
It
very
doesn't
good.
have to be for every week or anything, but I think it's a good option to have rotating in the squares.
I like
Um,
it. That's really
yeah,
good.
yeah, his vengeance jacket. And I want to say that he keeps that jacket on through the rest of the movie
He does.
where he's reaping out vengeance.
He does.
Every
No,
time he murders somebody, it's in that jacket.
you're right. You're absolutely right. That's great.
Also, I want to say thank you, Derek, for being able to admit
Yeah,
that you may have been wrong on this and that I was able to prove my point
it was
because
great.
a lot of people would have just stuck to their guns, but you were open to listening, and that's a hard skill to find these days.
It's
A
a
hard
great
trait to
observation,
find.
though. I love that. That's really cool.
We were
Now, I want to
cracking
go
up.
back. I want to see.
I know. I wish we could have like we should have kept track in the other. I guess I could go through my notes and try and find it, but there's been vengeance jackets in other movies.
Well, now that you're explaining it, I'm like, you know what? I can like see it now.
You won't. What's funny is you won't be able to unsee it now. Anytime he puts on a leather jacket in future movies, you know that the switch is flipped.
And it was a nice jacket because it really caught my attention, just not in
Yeah.
the same way. And that's just really funny. But
Yeah,
that's,
but it
yeah,
makes sense, right? It literally is like a character shift. Now
Hmm.
he's not a cop. He's a vigilante wearing this leather jacket. So that's why in that moment, I think this was all planned. He was meant to be here. Also,
Yep.
I don't know if I notated it, but when we get a scene like right after this where his chief or whatever is interrogating him about it, and it's all he explains every bit as if it was like he was just doing what he should be doing as a police officer.
Oh,
Like
he's
the same
very
way the
good.
lawyer was making it seem like what the rapists were doing was the right way to respond to a situation. He's also using the law and like his things for being a police officer to explain why what he did was the right thing for the situation, even though he actually was being a vigilante and doing something he shouldn't do.
Mhm.
So I think that this one and the rest of them were all planned.
Well, I definitely thought the other ones were, but yeah, I agree with you now on this one.
Yeah, my next note was Cage has his vengeance jacket on. And then casual murder. Man, I love this term vengeance jacket too. I'm going to be honest. Like,
It's great.
I need a vengeance jacket of my own. Uh, Casual murder. When he kills this guy, what did you think of the actor's choices for dying there? Would there be any specific words you'd use to describe the acting in that
Um,
scene?
Delayed, strange.
Overacted, I was
Yeah.
thinking. He literally gets shot like right dead center in his head.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's standing and stumbling around for probably 5 or 6 seconds
It's a while, man.
before he goes down.
Because there's that brief moment where like, how is he not dead? He got shot, right? Like I'm looking on the screen. I'm like, it's right there, right? Like,
Yeah, there's a bullet hole in his head. And I'm not saying, like, listen, I haven't been around somebody that's been shot in the head. So I'm not saying it's impossible for a reaction like that. I feel like it's unlikely if it's in like the center dead on of your brain, probably destroying your brainstem, even that you would be able to stumble around and do anything.
it was a choice. It was
Yeah.
certainly a choice.
It was a big choice. And you know what? I respect big choices. Probably not the right one in this circumstance, but we also find out from when the captain is interrogating him that he is ex-military, which is another box on our bingo card. He was in
Yeah.
Desert Storm.
Because that's the thing,
Also,
right? Like he's not just, your average cop. This is a special dude.
the special ops, yeah, military decorated, whatever. Also, he's now killed somebody, so he's now a criminal, a current or former criminal, which is another box on the bingo card.
Hmm.
Um, So the lawyer meets up with the bad dickhead lawyer meets up with the good lawyer, Tina's lawyer, and is trying to negotiate like a plea deal because he knows that if this goes to a jury trial, the chance that there is a chance that he could lose there.
Well, right, because like I mean, he's an evil SOB, but he's not dumb,
Right.
right? And so yeah, when there's a jury involved, there's no guarantees. You might be able to, flip a judge because it's one person, but with a jury, you got 12 people. They're in a sequestered room. Who knows?
Right. Um yeah, and the woman is unwilling to bargain. She wants this to go to a trial. And to put these guys the way the plea works, he wants them to each get 3 years, basically. The
Yeah, because I think
brothers.
it was like two 18-month sentences that would
And
be
they're served
consecutive.
simultaneously or
Or,
consecutively,
yeah.
not simultaneously, but yeah. Yeah, so and she's not happy with that. So she doesn't accept that deal. So then we cut to the two brothers at a tattoo parlor where one of them is just like going on and on about pie and how he wants an apple pie tattoo. I don't really know what the point of that was.
Oh, so the point of it's still dumb, but the point of it was, I guess, at some point his mom made him a birthday pie instead of a birthday cake. I think we're
Right. I mean,
supposed to
I
feel
got
like,
that, but I don't understand what the point of that is in the larger context of the movie, is what I'm getting at.
I think it's just supposed to show where it's showing us who these guys are, right? Because we haven't really gotten to know them all that much. And so this guy, I guess, you know, he's a mama's boy, I
I
guess is the thing.
guess.
Because this is the two brothers,
Yes.
right? And so the mom is the completely insane nutcase who screams all the time at everybody.
You're the
Uh,
Karen.
I mean, she is as bad as it gets. She's
Yeah.
horrible. And yeah, so I guess it's just like I don't know. it was a weird scene, and the tattoo artist is like, okay, yeah, sure,
Yeah, the
whatever.
tattoo artist is clearly annoyed and tells him that he's going to have to stop talking and stay still if he
Hmm.
wants this tattoo. Meanwhile, the other brother gets a phone call, and this phone call tells him, "Hey, we've got recordings and we've got all this evidence for your case that will prove that you guys, even though they know they raped her and that there was no money involved or anything like that, he believes that this person has evidence that will aid in their trial."
Well, I think the idea is if they can incriminate Tina enough to make her, um, what's the word I'm looking for? To make her like
Less
a not,
credible.
yeah, thank you, yeah, to destroy her credibility, then a jury won't believe what she says.
Yeah. But I mean, how convenient is this phone
Oh yeah, I
call?
mean these four
These guys are
guys,
idiots.
they're horrible, but they're dumb, right? The lawyer is horrible and smart. These four are horrible and dumb.
Yes. And as an audience member, you have no idea. This that he think you think he's got the evidence. This is going to be a whole big deal. You never think it's going to be Nick Cage tricking
I mean,
the
I
dumb
did. I
guys.
don't.
I know, I'm obviously being sarcastic. But do
Also,
you
who's
remember
answering phone calls in 2017 from numbers you don't know?
do you remember what I said about the car casting originally?
Yes.
What I thought that they would drive.
Hmm.
What did I say I thought they would drive?
Like a muscle car, like an old Camaro or something.
What did they drive? Do you remember?
Is this they? What did they drive?
It's the Fire Chicken Trans Am with the black with the gold chicken on the front.
Oh, was it?
Trans Am, yes, like early
Oh,
'80s, I think.
maybe
I'm
it
not a
was.
big Trans Am
It
guy,
was a
so maybe
night
somebody will
scene. I
correct
might. I
me.
might not have noticed
It
the
was at
detail.
night, but yeah, they drive like this early '80s. Like this is 2017 when this movie takes place,
Yeah.
so they've kept this car around. And granted, it's in good shape or
I mean, the
whatever, but
Gremlin was old too.
it was that's true. That's a good point. The Gremlin was even older.
Yeah.
But yeah, they drive a Fire Chicken Trans Am, which is very much like the Joe Dirty, kind of
I mean, that fits the
Trans Am.
brothers. I guess that's the
Exactly.
thing, right? Like these guys, they live at home. They've got their parents versus the other dude. Maybe he seemingly lives on his own.
They're all kind of rednecky douchebags, though. I mean, you kind of
Yeah,
get that vibe
rednecks in
from
the
all of
north.
them.
I don't know how that happens,
Yeah,
but
it's very weird. But yeah, of course they're driving. So my car casting was right on for that one.
yeah,
And
that's good.
my prediction for the fourth guy, because we got the Gremlin and we got the muscle car, I didn't get the Gremlin right, but I was that the fourth guy was going to drive a truck.
Mm, good.
That was my casting. That's what my casting would have been
It's not
for the
bad.
fourth guy. Some old like Chevy OBS truck. Anyway, yeah, so they meet. It's they're so smart that they go right to the edge of the falls to meet this guy that they've never met before
Again, the
who
same
has
spot,
incriminating the same
pouring
spot. Yeah.
rain.
And he immediately he pushes, I think he pushes or he shoots the first one. No, he shoots them both.
He shoots them both, but one guy falls
Yeah,
from the
off the
shooting
edge, and
because
the other one he just falls over.
he fires like a one shot from his revolver and then
Yeah.
switches guns.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a reason for that, but I don't know what it is.
But the second guy doesn't go over the edge, so Nick has to like kick him over the edge.
It was just pretty great.
It was pretty great.
He
Yeah.
shoots that dude a lot though.
Yeah.
I think he shoots him like almost the whole clip.
Probably. Yeah.
Even after the dude's down, he like shoots him like three more times or whatever. And Nick's got this big black truck.
Yeah.
You know,
So after this, now three of the four rapists are dead at this point.
yeah.
One left. The daughter.
And real quick though, so Niagara Falls, like I get like okay, cover of night, whatever. Those bodies will eventually be found,
Yeah.
and they're gonna be found with bullet holes in them.
Sure.
So, I mean, there's got to be some repercussions
Eh,
of that. There's gonna be an investigation, wouldn't there?
no, the screenwriters didn't really think that far. It only really needs to go until the trial, and then it's good.
It just needs to go till the credits, and
Yeah, exactly. So the daughter, Bethy, and the grandmother
Mhm.
go out shopping.
Ugh.
And at one point, the grandmother goes to like check to see if they have some shoes in Bethy's size. And it's kind of unclear whether this is a real thing that happens or a hallucination, but like
No,
she's
this
looking
happens. This absolutely happens.
she's looking in the mirror and this guy is like threatening her. The creepy fourth rapist guy is threatening her about what she can't say anything, blah blah blah, they'll kill everybody, whatever. And then when she turns around, the guy is gone, and the grandmother comes over, and the guy is not there. So somehow this guy was just waiting in this shoe store. This is why I think it could have been a
I think he
hallucination.
was
Like,
following her, just like, Nick was following the other guys.
okay, fair enough. Either
Yeah.
way, it was very creepy.
It's just every time Bethy or Tina were like gonna be alone for a minute, I was like, oh my God, something's gonna happen in this scene. But like that's the thing, like all these guys are just they're so big on intimidation. Like it's not enough that they did what they did, right? They're gonna just keep taking chances and keep pushing it and keep pushing it. And like at some point, like if you can get away with this, like why add extra risk to what you've done?
Right.
Like the first guy, right? Okay, so you gotta if you think you're gonna get away with this, and what you're just gonna like kill a dude in the parking lot.
Apparently.
At some point, you're gonna get in trouble.
You would think, yeah.
Like it's just I don't know.
Well, Nick ends up getting the playing the same trick on this fourth guy that he plays on the brothers,
But
but he wants
this
him to meet in a hotel room instead of the edge of Niagara Falls.
but here's the problem. We don't know how the phone call the first time went. We know this time this the dude thinks he's talking to a woman that he
Yeah.
went to school with, has a name and everything. Who is placing this call for Nicolas Cage?
They make voice changers. That's a pretty common thing.
He just has a voice changer to make
He's
him
a
sound like
detective. Yeah, why wouldn't he? And a
okay.
vigilante. He's got a vengeance jacket.
So how does he know this woman? He just picked a woman that from the same graduating class or something?
You think he can't find a woman like the name of a woman from a graduating
But
class?
how does he know any like that this would, be the right person to pick and not someone that he dated or someone that
Unclear. Doesn't matter.
I mean
Moving
that
on.
it does matter.
No, it doesn't matter because they never address it, so it's fine.
He goes all the way out to a motel in the middle of the night to meet a woman he went to school with and her daughter
Yes, and she
because
has incriminating evidence on Tina.
the name matters. Where that name came from matters.
No, it doesn't. Um, so they meet at this hotel room, and it's very
Motel.
clear motel, whatever. It's a place you stay for the
It
night or the
matters.
hour or whatever. Anyway, uh, it's very clear that Nick is going to try and make this look like the guy is he's staging a suicide.
Yeah.
But for some reason, Nick tells the guy to put his hand on the gun while the guy is still alive. He makes him write like a suicide note, and
Hmm.
he points the gun to the guy's head and put your hand on the gun.
Hmm.
And then as soon as the guy touches the top of the gun, Nick shoots him in the head.
Hmm.
Why didn't he just like shoot him in the head and then put the gun in his hand?
Unclear.
I mean, maybe you could make an argument that there wouldn't be gunpowder on his fingers if he did that. But shoot him again then.
Yeah, I mean maybe it's that. I don't know. It is
It
strange.
just seems like you're just trying to make it like if you're trying to make it look like a suicide, why would his fingerprints be like on the gun at the very top like this and not on the trigger?
Maybe it is the gun
Maybe
the
that seems like for people that did for the screenwriting and whatever they did on this movie, all the open plot holes they left. That is seems like
that
a
was the
lot
one.
of yeah. That seems like a lot of forethought. But I sure okay, we'll go with that. Um, so then the lawyer accuses Nick of vigilante justice. And at this point, I'm like, okay, so now Nick's got to kill the lawyer, right? Like, this guy is the skeeziest of all skeezies. He might as well have raped the woman himself too, because I mean, he's
Oh
just
yeah, he's
absolutely a
horrible.
piece of shit.
He has
Nope.
clearly taken a lot of really terrible people and let them just live on their lives.
Yeah. Nope. Doesn't. No.
Well, that's the thing.
Doesn't do anything to him. The lawyer gets off scot free. No problems.
The corrupt lawyer gets
He
off
got
scot-free.
he
The
got
corrupt
paid.
the judge gets off scot-free,
The
right?
dude, the lawyer got paid. He got a house out of it. They
Yeah, he
show the parents leaving the house.
hmm
Yeah. So I don't really know what the message here was. We see Nick Cage just like casually carrying a tactical shotgun like across a street.
Yeah, I thought that was going somewhere.
It was a weird, really weird street scene. But then we get the girl Tina and Bethy walking up to the fence where all the cop cars are and saying we're leaving town or whatever. And Bethy says I love you to him, which I thought was a little odd.
Well, I mean,
But he definitely had befriended a minor at that point, so I
yeah.
definitely at that point, if the box hadn't been checked,
I mean,
we were
thinking
checking
about
on.
like this situation, right? Her dad at this point, is dead from cancer. Her mom went through all of this. She went through some of this stuff. Like it's been really bad, and this has been like this one positive male role model who isn't trying to get with her mom, who's trying to, help them out, and he's giving them their phone number and he's watching out for them, and like, he like just appears to be trying to do good,
Yeah.
and she's 10, 12 years old, right? So like, what does that sound like to her? What does that mean? You know? And that's why, like, to me, it seems like that's the real connection in the movie is the two of them, which
Well, I don't think it's a romantic connection by the end of the
no, no,
movie.
no,
No, no,
no.
no, not between the Nick and the girl, but between Nick and Tina.
Oh,
I don't. By
yeah.
the end of the movie, it's not a romantic connection. I think
It
it was
does
only a romantic interest for that brief scene.
it does call into question the title of the film,
It does, yeah.
which also calls into question the title of the book.
Well, I
Uh,
think the love story is clearly Bethy and John, right? It's not a romantic love.
it's just okay.
I guess that's the only thing I can come up with.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it just seems like a horrible. Uh, so that the name of the movie is Vengeance, a love story. The name of the book is Rape, a love story, which has
Is
to
it
be
really?
argued.
Holy
Yeah,
shit.
that's got to be one of the worst book titles that has ever been published in human history. That is a horrible title.
The fact that they wanted to
Horrible.
make a movie based on that book is crazy to me.
But they knew well enough that that's a terrible title.
Yeah.
Like that's a horrible, horrible title. And it makes it that much more shocking that it's written by a woman because to me that seems terrible.
Yeah, it's not great. All right, so after we do these reviews, we usually go through and read some of the more interesting IMDb reviews of the movie. Derek, do you think we should start with the ones out of tens or the 10 out of tens on this movie?
Let's start with the 10 out of 10s and then we'll end on a low high note.
Okay, sounds good. So let's see. 10 out of 10, classic Vengeance. Cage is a badass. What more can you say? This film is a great one in which the ending makes it all worth watching. I guess we should clarify too that the vengeance part of it really only happens in like the last 15 minutes.
And it only takes like 10 of those minutes.
Yeah, it's
Like
very over very quickly. But yeah, so that's what we talked about earlier about like the two separate movies. That was like its own movie. This one says real and raw emotions. I was in tears from the moment of the attack. I have seen many films that attempted to portray the horror of a sexual assault, and I truly believe they nailed it. I can only hope that, if anything, this helps to bring awareness to how courts victimize someone that survives a rape and then make a change. The actors did a fantastic job making it raw and true to the emotions. I will say that the woman that played Tina, I don't really know her from anything else, but her acting like in the time immediately after after she wakes up when she's in the hospital and she's going home and things like that was incredible.
she's very good.
I can't say any other words other than incredible. I mean, she was, I 100% believed that this was a person that had experienced a huge trauma, just like even the small ticks or reactions like jumping when somebody was near,
Mhm.
things like that, which it was just handled incredibly well, and she did a really good job of that. So I do want to say that for sure.
Yeah, that's Anna Hutchinson. People you might know she was in Cabin in the Woods a while back, and so people might know her from that. And depending on your age, she was the Yellow Ranger in Power Rangers Jungle Fury. So if you watch that version of Power Rangers, she was the Yellow Ranger in that. But she's been in a good amount of stuff. So I'm sure some people have seen her in a few different things. But that's what I know her from is Cabin in the Woods.
Fair enough. I've never seen it.
Oh,
Um,
dude.
Great film with a lot of tense moments. I suspect that those have given this film a poor review are the same people that could never be in or make such a film because they lack the proper skills. Haters always going to hate. I loved it. Absolutely solid performances by Cage, Hutchinson, and young Bateman. Cage's performance was a bit too icy. They could have let him show more outwardly emotion, compassion, and rage. I have not read the book, but I'm sure this is a good adaptation. Sadly, yet another movie which shows how justice treats women. Considering how two current Supreme Court judges in spite of testimonies by their alleged victims, were selected by the Senate to the bench. Yes, Thomas and Kavanaugh. Oh, let us also not forget President 45, who still got the votes into office. The best part of the movie was the bar scene. Hutchinson putting Sebastian Cole's rendition of Otis Redding classic "I've Been Loving You," and the buildup of chemistry between Cage and Hutchinson was very good, but alas, it got to nowhere. The bar scene and Talitha's heart-wrenching cries and how much she cared and wanted to protect her mother were the strong points of this movie. Remains one of my favorite Cage and Hutchinson movies, followed by Trespass. Ooh. And as for Hutchinson's Secrets at the Lake, where she co-starred with her neighbor across the water, Nikki Whelan. Okay.
Nikki Whalen. Yeah,
Um,
she's been in a few things.
we watched Trespass, didn't we?
Yeah, recently.
She was in that. I don't remember her being in that.
No.
Anyway,
I
oh,
don't.
they made it sound. Maybe they just meant this was Nick's best movie since Trespass. But they says remains one of my favorite Cage and Hutchison movies, followed by Trespass. I don't know. Maybe he was just confused on two blonde actresses.
Well, because
All
Trespass
right.
is the Nicole Kidman
Oh yeah.
movie.
No,
So
he must be very
um,
confused.
yeah, I'm not sure what that means. Nikki Whalen, she was that Inconceivable, and then she was in another one.
Mm.
Drawing a blank, but
Okay, you'll like some of these. 1 out of 10s. Imbecilic writing. I'm not a movie critic, but I did practice law for 41 years. The courtroom scenes in this movie exceed the outermost boundaries of stupidity. This is sloppy, incompetent, and irresponsible writing, a piece of trash. It's impossible to point a finger at the person responsible with two screenwriters fiddling with a novel. Disgusting. Vengeance, the story of how quickly you can leave a theater. Cage needs to hang it up and hang that wig up too. That was not a wig.
what?
Poor acting,
He looks
terrible
fine.
cast, unoriginal storyline, completely asinine courtroom scenes. Skip this, skip the thought of watching it. Do anything else with your life for 90 minutes. I'm struggling to get 5 lines of text for this horrible film. Damn, there's a lot of Cage hate on this. The actors must have gone to the Nicolas Cage school for bad acting. The music, the acting, the lighting, the photography, the script, all rotten. The little girl wasn't bad. I guess less experience in this case is better. I did like the poster of Jim Morrison on the wall near the end. That's all I have to say.
Okay.
Here's another one that says the wig. Seriously, Nicolas Cage's wig screams, "Look at me!" in every scene he's in. It has a life of its own, moving about as if it were a live thing in some scenes, sleeping greasily in others. Come on, Nick, spring for a buzz cut. You're heading into the twilight years, and Elvis is long dead. There's no evident plot here, and the movie needs some serious editing. Continuity is shabby. For example, the child's age keeps roving around from 8 to 12, according to Who's Talking, which you touched on.
That's true.
The
That
court scene
part's
is
true.
something out of Charlie Chaplin with accuseds hissing at the victim, and Nick keeps popping up in scenes like some weird wizard. And who was the woman who phoned the last accused anyway? Plot holes all over the place. Now Charlene Tilton as the raging mama was a treat, and the poor fellow who was her husband was the only person apart from Nick who was employed. No depth, but the child actor Bateman was brilliant in her scenes. Did I mention the dollar store makeup? Seriously, worst ever. And who gets that close to the falls in a car with no barriers? Yeah.
Most of
I
that's
mean,
fair. I don't know why people think Nick is wearing a wig. I don't
his
understand.
hair, it looks like that in most of the movies from that generation. I mean, in most of the lower budget movies from that
Yeah.
generation. In the higher budget movies, they do more with his hair, but
I mean,
his
like of all the things to dislike about the movie, I mean, he looked fine.
yeah, I mean, he has a receding hairline. He's an older man. I mean, guess what? That's just what a lot of older men look like. It's
He was in
just
his 50s at the time,
yeah, exactly. Like
you know.
well, I'm pretty sure that was not a wig. He
He
looks
still
like
has more
that in a
hair than
lot
me.
of yeah, fair point. Anyway, this was a lot more of that. So you get the idea. So at this point, we usually do a rating for either our cage-o-meter in terms of caginess, and then in our quality as like how likely are we to recommend this to a friend, or how good of a quality do we think the movie is. So did any of those reviews sway your opinion one way
I
or the
mean,
other?
no, none of them swayed my opinion really. I mean, Anna Hutchinson was very, very good in this. I think Talitha Bateman was very good in this as well. I don't think Nick had a whole lot to do.
I would have
Most
liked to have seen him a little less stoic.
right, like I mean, half of his scenes he doesn't even speak, and if he does, it's as short and succinct as possible.
Yeah,
Um, Don Johnson, I mean, he really sells the horrible, sleazy scumbag lawyer perfectly.
yeah.
So I think the performances of most of the cast are pretty good. Uh, I think the story is mostly ridiculous, and very very frustrating movie to watch with a lot of plot holes, particularly the ones that have been mentioned so far. Um, I don't want to fully trash it because I do think there are some redeeming qualities, but I'm thinking from a quality standpoint, I'm feeling like an 8.
Yeah, I was at a 9, so I think we're
Okay.
pretty close on that. I definitely think it was on the lower end of his average movies. So 8.5 is right about where we want to be with that, I think. In
Yeah.
terms of caginess, he's not really very cagey at all in this. I mean, he's great.
Hmm.
Um, you know, perfectly fine performance, but it's just not what we typically see from a Nick Cage role. I feel like other people probably could have done this, and it would have been fine.
Yeah.
This isn't one where it really brings his strengths in, is basically what I'm getting at with that. So, I mean, it was low caginess. There was maybe one scene where he seemed a little cagey, so I'm going to say maybe like a 3.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna give it a 2 because a 1 seemed maybe too far.
Yeah.
So I think so a 2 for me. So an 8.5 on quality and a 2.5 on caginess. Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Like I just don't think his character John had a whole lot on the paper.
He could have been any actor really could have played this role.
It's a very kind of generic character, unfortunately, and Nick does better when he has room to play.
Yeah, when he can
You
do a
know.
little bit of his own stuff.
Yep. Yep. And because to the point about comparing it kind of like to John Wick or whatever, like the way he takes these four guys out is just so quick.
Yeah.
That there's no build up, there's no monologuing or like anything like that. It's just boom, 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 they're all gone. So yeah, so that's all that then. Now we have to figure out which movie joins our wheel o cage. We spin our wheel o cage each time to find out which movie we're going to talk about next. And so this movie, Vengeance, a Love Story, leaves the wheel, and replacing it will be the first Ghost Rider.
Nice. We reviewed
So
that one, I think, a couple of times before, but not on this podcast.
just once on Screen Heroes.
I think it was a part of a like group of movies at some
Uh,
point we talked about too.
yeah, maybe. Yeah,
Either way,
so
we are very familiar with this movie. So
and it's eligible. It doesn't mean that's what will be next. You'll have to watch the Wheel o Cage to find out which movie does get picked next. You can go to comingofcage.com for all of our links. Follow us at Coming of Cage on all of those different social media platforms. We're out on most of them nowadays. Ryan, anything else for Vengeance?
you could probably skip this one.
I think that's fair. All right. Well, we are the Coming of Cage podcast. I'm Derek. That's Ryan.
We'll see you next time.